Hello everyone, my name is Vitalik Buterin. I'm the founder of the Ethereum project. I would say that a blockchain is a decentralized way for a large group of users that don't fully trust each other to come into consensus on a common view of what they all believe is the truth. I think one of the important things is that you need to come up with some applications that users and institutions would find interesting and beneficial to them. So in order for financial institutions to seriously look at adopting any kind of blockchain technology, it needs to have a strong case for why this would benefit them, and particularly provide a path for how it would benefit them, because a lot of the blockchain applications require many different groups to adopt the technology all at the same time, and that's not something that can realistically happen. But if you can show some kind of path that says, this person adopts the technology here, they benefit, then this person adopts the technology here and they benefit, then that's something that could be much more realistic. Overcoming inertia in general is also a problem, and there's always the question of whether adoption of the technology is going to come more from existing financial institutions or from startups that are trying to compete with them. And I think realistically we're going to see a combination of both approaches, and we're even going to see startups working together with some mainstream companies to some extent. From the government side, I think there's a few different areas. So one of them, for example, is that it would obviously be harmful for adoption of blockchain technology if governments were to try and to restrict or ban it in some way. And I think promoting kind of understanding of what the technology is, and just in general having a good relationship between government and industry and startups is important in helping to mitigate the risk of that happening. Also, there are things that governments can actively do to help. So there have been some countries where they've created various kinds of regulatory sandboxes. There have been some governments that have even been looking at blockchain applications on their own, whether it's state-issued digital currencies or some kind of digital identity system or something else. I would say also it's important that if governments are interested in doing something to make life easier for the blockchain industry in their country, then they should first talk to the people that are already building things and make sure that they understand what their existing concerns are. It's there are a lot of fairly well-intentioned projects that really try to help, but they don't solve actual problems that blockchain companies have. For example, the fact that it's very difficult for them to get bank accounts. So that's also something that I think needs to be addressed. I think blockchain ecosystem has many different components to it. So one of them is startups. One of them is established businesses that are willing to either explore the technology themselves or work with startups that do. One is government support. I would say in some cases government support just consists of not going after people, but in other cases there's also more active things that they can do, as I was mentioning, sandboxes, trying to promote collaboration and so forth. There's academia and universities. I think there's opportunities for collaboration between universities and startups for research and development, for example. I would say users. So there's a lot of different groups. In some cases, some of those groups are more developed. In other cases, other groups are more developed. I think it's which groups are more developed ends up having a lot of influence on what kinds of applications start happening first, because there are some kinds of applications that really do depend on mainstream financial and government support, but in other applications, just startups can start doing it on their own and they don't really need anyone else's help. So it's there are some blockchain communities that are successful in some ways but not successful in other ways, and but the more of kind of sides of the blockchain community are healthier, then I would say the better things are for all sides. In general, I think So Malaysia seems to be a place where, even though there hasn't been that much adoption of blockchain technology yet, it's a place where people are starting to get interested very quickly, and if people put their minds to it, I think a lot of progress can happen. I think especially because the existing financial infrastructure isn't quite as well developed as in major cities like London, for example. In some ways, that might actually even make progress easier because there isn't any existing infrastructure that you have to compete with. You can basically just start building the new system exactly as it should be from scratch, and sometimes that can make things move forward very quickly.